Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'd like to answer questions first, but I think I'll keep going. I was recently at a conference where a number of senior public managers were talking about AI. And the question that you read, JP, was, how well is this being adapted? And there was just general fear. I was talking to the vendor community, and they were very concerned of all the risks. And of course, public managers are very risk adverse, and they saw a lot of things that worried them to the point where they were taking a very cautious approach, almost too much. So later this week, I have an article coming out in Route 50 that I wrote. We need guide rails more than we need guardrails. So I addressed that head on. But I thought I would kind of dovetail with Jeff's presentation, talking about the pitfalls and opportunities in local government. And there's so much that, exists below the surface that we don't see. And first, I just want to say there are two hats that I wear. The first is, as JP mentioned, serving as a professor in the Schar School, but also as an exec director of the nonprofit organization, Public Technology Institute. And talk about small world. We recently, 2 weeks ago, held a summit on cybersecurity and AI, and we did this at the IBM Innovation Studio. So that was kind of interesting, talk about how, we have common roots here. And in that, I asked 𝗬𝙬, which is part of ChatGPT, to draw an intersection between cybersecurity and AI. And it just shows you the power, not just in text, and soon, as you heard from Jeff, voice, but also the visuals that we can use. And we've got to be really good at prompts to get to what it is that we're looking for. So I think by now we realize that AI is no longer hype. And initially, a number of organizations, and some well-known organizations, were talking about this as being something overblown. But there's so many interesting side parts of all of this. I don't know if you've heard about 𝗵𝗶𝘀𝗶𝘁, cute little dog made by Sony. And for a mere $3,000, you can have a robotic companion dog. And where I'm speaking from today, it's kind of a rainy day. It's kind of day when you would prefer perhaps not to walk your dog. Imagine having a robot dog do everything and recognize you and play tricks and all sorts of things. It is powered by AI, and you get 2 years of free cloud support, where much of the memory is stored. But there's a dark side to this, where this animal, this robot, cannot be sold in the state of Illinois. Now, you're not going to get arrested if you have one, but the problem is that this runs afoul with the state's Biometric Information Privacy Act. So this has really prevented Sony from selling it there, and they've had this product on the market for about 4 or 5 years. So we're starting to see this glimpse of the human-machine partnership. And the announcement yesterday where OpenAI is now talking about GPT-4o is this will be kind of looked upon as the year that we moved from text to voice. Just like we talk to Alexa and Siri, we're going to be talking to these systems. And what's more, we can actually interrupt them in the middle of something if we know we're hearing something that we didn't want to hear, or that something is wrong. It'll be very conversational. So today, May 14th, perhaps is a moment of change when we're going to probably, we'll always have a keyboard, but perhaps less so when it comes to AI conversations. When we look at where we're going, we saw how quickly ChatGPT was adopted, but I look at this from Domo, where approximately 7,000 ChatGPT prompts are occurring every minute, 24/7. And that's just ChatGPT. There's 5 other ones that we use. So I look back in time, and this will age me. I remember being a proud Netscape navigator when the browser was the main, way in which we could get to the internet. And to me, everything that I've studied and researched, everything that we're hearing about AI today is as profound as the internet being made public. So we did a study just last year, the latter part of last year, and we asked local governments, these are cities and counties across the United States, What impact do you believe that AI will have on local government operations and service delivery? And almost 60% said, oh, there'll be dramatic change. Almost 42%, a little above, said little change, but nobody said there won't be change. So we know change is coming. It's already happening. And then we asked, is your IT department currently involved in AI projects? 60% said no, but about 40% said yes, they are. When we asked them, what are the functions where you feel AI can best benefit you in government, cybersecurity management was number one, followed by data analysis, citizen engagement, predictive analytics, decision-making, and the like. So you get a sense that our people are starting to really think about the actual applications that they may be looking forward to down the road. But when we asked them, do you believe that you need training to better understand the implications of AI? We've never had a response rate of about 90% saying, absolutely, not just for us, but for our staff. So there's really a need to learn more about this. And, some people have reported employees need drastic reskilling to deal with generative AI's data needs. And that's probably a whole other discussion about the importance of data. So as we navigate this whole area of artificial intelligence, including ChatGPT, including generative AI, I'm looking at this in a very broad way. Again, this theme of beneath the surface. I believe AI can be classified into 4 basic types of applications that can help us navigate in our thinking. One would be personal productivity tools, and I'll get to that in a little bit later on. These are all the tools that help us become more productive and maybe even creative. And I have quite a list of those. And this is where I think AI has already taken hold. People are subscribing or getting their free accounts, trying things out under the private radar of their own homes. Some are doing it at work, but some of the rules and laws that are out there, which I'll get to, are fairly restrictive. And so it's had a chilling effect. But number one, people are trying it. I've been in many, many conferences. How many people have tried, ChatGPT or Google Gemini? And almost 90% raise their hands, yes. The second area and way we should be thinking about this is enterprise type applications. So we have personal applications that help individuals become more productive. We have enterprise type applications like chatbots or different data tools to help analyze different forms of data. But here's the other cut that most people don't differentiate, which I think is important. Open AI systems versus closed AI systems. They both serve a purpose. Think of left side brain, right side brain, but this is a little bit more definitive. Open AI systems are what we are playing with today. We're trying things out personally, different ways, different things that have proven to be very interesting and helpful, and drawing things, summarizing things, scheduling things. And then we have closed AI systems where most of the enterprise applications live today that are just starting to emerge. This would be a ChatGPT or analyzing data. These are closed systems. And what that means, in these terms at least, is that they're not going beyond the government's domains. They're not going into the public per se. One can be used for more creative applications. The other is more probably protected, safeguarded, and it's kind of like something that is internal to the governmental body. So we have lots of interesting rules and guidelines and guardrails and the like that are being talked about and actually passed throughout the country. There's talk today that that Congress is fairly close to developing an AI kind of bill, and we're kind of behind. But that's not surprising. That's how we operate compared to the EU, which has had one for a bit of time now. But we can learn from that. California, no surprise, is talking about the AI Accountability Act that would watch state government urge private regulation. So they're looking to better regulate. We asked, again, back to our survey, does your local government have an AI policy in place? 42, just over 42 said no. Only less than 4% said yes. Some were unsure. And A third were saying we're working on one. And I would say that if we did the survey, which we are about to relaunch, I would suspect that that number goes up and will quadruple because everybody's talking about some form of policy or guidelines. When we asked what are the issues that most worry some of the local government and state government folks, it was ethics, unauthorized release of personally identifiable information, wrong and harmful decisions, and again, misinformation and disinformation, and then, of course, bias. New York has an AI strategy that's a couple of years old. They've moved in a different direction. Not only do they have a citywide application and policy, but they've particularly focused on their hiring and promotion because they felt this would be an area that somebody could really abuse. And since hiring individuals is such a sensitive issue in terms of treating people fairly, they have adopted final regulations on how AI can be used in hiring. And a lot of people perhaps don't realize that almost all the major job sharing sites, all the names, and I don't need to mention them, you know them, are probably fronted by AI systems that are doing the pre-screening, pre-selecting, looking for keywords and the like. And so there's a lot of room for bias and ethical concerns. So this is why New York focused on that. Connecticut signed a bill calling for the AI Bill of Rights. So that has set forth a process to develop one. Pennsylvania governor urges plans for how we should be using generative AI in the state of Pennsylvania. The one I want to focus on is Tempe, Arizona. They were one of the first cities in the nation. They were certainly the first in the state of Tempe. And the person who led that effort was their chief data analytics officer, who really had the vision to say, before we start playing with this, we should have a policy. And it was passed unanimously by the city council. It's a very ingenious thing. And this picture, to some, it's a little disturbing, but this gets back to this human-machine partnership that is emerging. I'll come to that in a second. But this policy applies to the design, development, and deployment of AI, not only for departments, but also for all the vendors that they're working with. It gets into concerns about generative AI and automated decision-making. They want to know more about AI functionality and having a means of disclosure. The scope obviously follows a certain routine. And as you know, many local governments follow the same kind of outlines, and that's perfectly fine. These are the kind of things that you can find in most policies today. Now, some people will call them guidelines, and there's a difference, and I want to get to that in a minute. The one that got my attention, however, within the Tempe, Arizona's policy was, quote, human AI collaboration. We will encourage collaboration between humans and AI systems, leveraging the strengths of both to enhance decision-making processes and ensure that ultimate control remains with humans. This alone is a profound statement. It is far-reaching, and they were the first to start using this kind of terminology. I find that very, very interesting. I understand it. And I've had many conversations with the author. And I asked the question, okay, you started with a policy, why not guidelines? She felt that it was important that the city stand firm and come up with a directive of the big picture, what people should be looking to do, and that guidelines would follow. I would say that most local governments have started with guidelines first because they wanted the flexibility to adapt and make changes. And there are a few cases where some of the policies that have been passed by different local government bodies have become obsolete based on recent changes. So I think the one element that people are looking for is flexibility, given the fact that we are seeing changes almost every single day. So if we look at the state of state AI laws 2023, 10 states included AI regulations as part of the larger consumer privacy laws that were passed or going into effect in 2023, and even more states have proposed similar bills. Several states have proposed task forces to investigate AI, and other states expressed concern about AI's impact on services like healthcare, insurance, and employment. More than a third of state agencies are using AI in Texas, and Texas is beginning to examine its potential. Then we have the EU Act, and I think you're going to find that the U.S. Congress is going to has looked at what the EU has done. As a nation, we don't regulate in the same way that Europe does, but I think there's general agreement that it would be helpful, instead of having this patchwork of laws throughout our cities, counties, and states, that there should be some uniform guidelines that would be helpful, that we all could look to for common purpose. This whole idea of prompts, like I showed you earlier about prompting for a picture, prompting for something, the art of the prompt has become something very, very, very special. There are now university programs on prompting, prompt engineering, and then even on the policy side, exercises to help students learn how to better prompt and ask the questions, perhaps more than one different kind of platform to get the various answers. There are many interesting curated examples that one could look at in all of this. I don't have enough time to go through all these, but you can get a sense, and I will make this slide deck available in a PDF form for anybody who would like this. But here, a city council member is a prompt. As a city council member, ask my relevant questions about critique responses as I present elements of my proposal for improving public transportation. A city manager prompt. As a city manager, provide feedback on my proposed plan to streamline services using digital technology. For a CFO prompt, as a CFO, evaluate my proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year, focusing on the allocation of resources to key infrastructure projects. So you get a sense that we need to better understand how best to ask questions. Now, I mentioned understanding the difference between open and closed systems is important for our planning. It's important for our purchasing, working with purchasing officers to understand what are the risks in either, and they are. We have to understand them. I just want to share, when we talk about things changing all the time, this is something that is rather fascinating.
Disembodied voice AI we'll need to talk to and have natural conversations. But what did you have in mind?
Well, this is my first time working with you. What can you do for me?
Oof. I hear a little bit of frustration there. No need to worry about. As an empathic voice interface, I am here to make our chats fun, engaging, and tailored to you. How about we start by you telling me a bit more about what you're hoping to get out of our conversation?
I'm going to move on. This was something that came to my attention about last month, AI. And what's interesting here is the focus is totally on voice. They claim to have sampled 400,000 individuals, both male and female, and they're looking for certain emotions. So imagine how this could be used in government applications, such as call centers, 311 call centers, 911 call centers, mental health, counseling, and the like. While I was talking to it, it was measuring the intensity of my voice, every little inflection. And if you had noticed on the right side of your screen, it was showing the top 3 emotions that it was hearing inherent in my voice. So it has quite a bit of power behind it. It basically is looking for 53 emotions and has come up with this empathetic model. So it just gives you a sense, just when you think you've heard it all, you find out, no, there's some new things that are happening. I mentioned, how we should think of things. There are 4 ways. Some of it's complementary. When we look at personal productivity and creativity, tools that help us write better, serving as a personal editor. AI to help organize thoughts and create outlines. AI to help summarize meetings, both live and virtually. I've been in some Zoom meetings, and there's a person's name I did not recognize, and it turns out that was a software program listening and being able to tell who is speaking and giving us a summary at the end of that meeting. AI to research certain types of information and data, using AI to schedule meetings among various individuals and groups. That's kind of interesting, and that's growing. AI to generate computer code for internal applications, AI to help create illustrations and charts from data, AI to gather news and information on topics of interest, and then AI to translate between written and spoken languages. That's just some of them categorically. So some of the major points when it comes to listening to our local governments and the meetings that we've had, We need to understand open and closed systems, the pros and cons. We need to understand better about data classification, integrity, and security. We need to kind of focus on guide rails, not guardrails. Now, for the developers, yeah, I'm more for guardrails for them. But when it comes to the users, we need guide rails. Number 4 would be AI for personal creativity and productivity. We need to understand AI for operational applications. We need to build sandboxes so we can experiment. And then we need to keep vendors accountable, because it's not like we are able to just build these systems from scratch. They take tremendous amounts of computer power and electric power too. So we are at the mercy of the vendor community in terms of what is available to us. And we've got to be better at asking the right questions and waiting for the right answers. And then we must learn the art of the prompt, how important it is to learn how to ask questions more than once and differently. So the other ongoing concerns, this kind of dovetails on what Jeff was saying. We are concerned about ethics and bias and data quality. There are some cases where data isn't as good as we thought, and that's going to really hurt any AI application. We have to worry about privacy, security, copyright, deep fakes, misinformation, disinformation, and this being an election year, election integrity, and explainability. And finally, if all things go wrong, the ability to pull the plug. This is very important. So here's something, it was mentioned, JP talked about this book. I only want to mention it because it was interesting, as someone who wears a professor's hat. This did not go over well initially with the faculty, because I openly acknowledged that this was something that I did, and I consulted artificial intelligence and helped putting together the 38 illustrations and the like. So I asked it, in this case, ChatGPT, please draw a picture of an octopus sitting atop of masses of data, both structured and unstructured, including social media. This is what I got within half a minute. And it was pretty amazing. I thought, well, that's a little more colorful than I would like. But ultimately, it led to a book. And I openly admit it was edited by 2 different AI programs. 38 illustrations were prompted by me, but they were generated. I mean, I wrote it, but I had an awful lot of help. So the octopus was just a different way to view some being that's highly intelligent, that has its limbs on all forms of data, just bring it in, being aware. And that's what led to the publication of the book that was mentioned earlier. So that's me. I think I've kept within my time, and I am eager to respond to any questions that you might have.